What's going on, Vikings fans? Happy Monday morning to all of you guys. And coming up on today's edition of Vikings Now by Chat Sports, we're going to talk about the latest rumors going around that the Vikings could be playing not just one game overseas, but possibly two this upcoming season. And then ESPN dropped their NFL power rankings post-NFL draft, and they actually gave the Vikings some love on this list. So we'll dive into all that on today's show. But before we do so, if you guys could, hit that subscribe button. We're actually closing in on 56,500 subscribers. So if you guys want daily videos, we go live every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time where we do mailbags, and I'm always chopping it up with you guys in the comments section. So if you guys haven't already, I would greatly appreciate it. Go down there and subscribe to the channel today. So a Steelers beat reporter, Andrew Filipponi, who tweeted this out yesterday, May 4th, saying source, the Steelers will host the Vikings in Ireland on September 28th, not the Packers, contrary to popular belief. Now, this would be week 4 of the NFL season, so this could mean the Vikings have an early bye in week 5, but stay tuned for just a second because maybe the Vikings could be playing back-to-back games overseas. But my take when I heard the possibility about the Vikings playing the Steelers in London, big international audience, I immediately just thought about the storylines in this game where we're going to connect it back to the offseason. Oh, the Vikings made a decision to turn the keys of the franchise over to J.J. McCarthy coming off a torn meniscus, and they said no to the 4-time MVP, Super Bowl MVP Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be talked about the entire week. But I am a fan of this game. I would love to go see the Pittsburgh Steelers in Dublin, Ireland, instead of having to travel to their barn in Pittsburgh. But the storylines that week, man, it would be incredible. Just Aaron Rodgers, Minnesota Vikings. I can't wait to see it. But I do want to look back at the past 5 matchups between the Vikings and Steelers, and there actually are some notable games, even though they've only played each other 5 times since 2005. Now, the last 5 matchups, Steelers do have the advantage, 3-2 in the win-loss column. But back in 2021, the Vikings won that game on a Thursday night. That was the infamous Chase Claypool play. But they also played in 2017, 2013, 2009, and 2005. But the number one play when I think about the Vikings-Steelers history here is this Adrian Peterson run during, I believe, 2009 season where he caught the pass. It was just running a Texas route over the middle of the field. Steelers linebacker tries to come up and make a play on him, and Adrian Peterson literally just runs straight through the man. I mean, this picture is incredible. But that play, I wish we could show the highlight here on the show, but it was one of the best plays, I think, in Vikings franchise history. It might be one of the most physical runs in NFL history. But when I think of the Vikings and the Steelers, I think of that play, but then also this. If you guys remember on that Thursday night game, Steelers were down 36-28. They're driving. They're around like the Vikings' 35-yard line. They have no timeouts. There's 30 seconds left. And Chase Claypool, he makes a play, and he, instead of getting the ball down for they can spike it and get to the next play quickly, he's hitting a celebration. And this kind of was the end of the Chase Claypool era, not just with the Steelers, but in the NFL, because he was then traded to the Bears. Did not work out there. He's been kind of just jumping around the league since then. But, obviously the Vikings Steelers don't have a rich history, but I do think of 2 specific plays in terms of those matchups. But I do want to throw this idea out there, and I saw some people talking about it on Twitter because, the Vikings had an early bye week last year, and, they definitely could give them that same bye week this upcoming season. But let's just say they are week 4 in Dublin. I don't want to rule out the Vikings possibly playing the Browns in London the following week. So the Vikings have already played the Browns in London. That was when Adam Thielen had that one touchdown. He hit the soccer celebration. One of the coolest plays that I remember from our London series with the Vikings. But I think this could be a possibility where they play them in Dublin week 4 and then they just travel to London in week 5, take on the Browns. I think this would be great news for the Vikes, though, because you got 2 tough AFC North opponents. And instead of playing them in Pittsburgh, in Cleveland, maybe later on in the year when it's colder out, you just get to play them overseas where it's tough travel for both ball clubs. And plus the advantage the Vikings would have against the Browns in this game, you're already used to that kind of time zone. There's no real adjustment you need to make. So I think this would be an ideal situation. Even though I don't love the Vikings playing international games, I think this would be an advantage, or at least a scheduling advantage for the Minnesota Vikings. But I'll ask you this, because I've seen a lot of people going back and forth on Twitter, on Instagram, and even in the comment section, debating if they are a fan of these international games. Well, what say you? Are you a fan of international games for the Vikings? Give me a Y for yes, or give me an N for no down below in the comment section. Coming up next year on the show, we're going to dive into ESPN's latest power rankings post-NFL draft, where they did show the Vikings actually a lot of love. So stay tuned for that. But before we do so, I got to tell you guys about today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Now, if you guys get started at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off and use code VikingsChat50off, you guys will get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code VikingsChat50off at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off for 50% off plus free shipping. Now, make this your best season yet with 2-minute meals from Factor. Eating well has never been this easy. All you do is heat up and enjoy, giving you more time to do what you want. Get outside instead of prepping and cooking indoors. Factor meals arrive fresh and ready to eat, and it's perfect for any active lifestyle. Now, here covering the Minnesota Vikings at Chat Sports, I don't always feel like making a home-cooked meal every day I get off of work. That's where Factors came in, and it's changed my life. You just put it in the microwave for 2 minutes, and it is delicious and ready to heat and eat for you for dinner, breakfast, lunch. They have it all at Factor. So Factor powers your day with satisfying breakfast, on-the-go lunches, premium dinners, and guilt-free snacks and desserts. So get started at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off and use code VikingsChat50off to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. That's code VikingsChat50off at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50off for 50% off plus free shipping. All right, let's dive into ESPN's latest power rankings. Now, when I first clicked on this article, I was expecting the Vikings to be nowhere near the top 10. I was expecting them to be in that kind of 14 to 17 range, lumped in there with like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Chicago Bears, kind of in that tier. Well, ESPN actually showed the Vikes a whole lot of love here, having them come in at number 9. And I'm not going to lie, ESPN did an incredible job with these power rankings. I really don't have any big gripes with this. Maybe I would go the Philadelphia Eagles number 1 instead of the Kansas City Chiefs, but, not really too disappointed in that. But they did go Chiefs, Eagles, Bills, Lions, Ravens, and then the Commanders at 6, Rams at 7, Packers at 8, and the Vikings actually coming in at number 9. So 3 teams in the NFC North in the top 9 here, and then they had the Bengals rounded out at number 10. But I was stunned by this, like truly, truly stunned. I thought they were going to have the Vikings, like I was saying, in that 13 to like 17 tier, where, they're with the Bucks, the Bears. I could even see them throwing them in the same tier as, like the Broncos, for example. I was shocked that they had them in the top 10, but they actually talked about, like, what was their biggest upgrade this offseason. And ESPN, for the Vikings, said their interior offensive line, and I agree with that. I don't think that's a wild take to have at all. I mean, you added Ryan Kelly. You added Donovan Jackson in the draft. You were able to pick up Will Fries as well. And, yes, you made some big additions on that defensive line, but the defensive line, even if you didn't pick up Hargrave and Allen, you still had enough talent there to be serviceable. But if the Vikings didn't pick up Kelly, Jackson, or Fries, I mean, this interior offensive line would have been one of the worst in the National Football League. But it's actually Kevin Seifert, beat reporter for the Minnesota Vikings, wrote this up, talking about where they are in the power rankings, saying the Vikings overhauled all 3 positions of their interior offensive line, committing $106 million in free agency to sign center Ryan Kelly and right guard Will Fries. They used their first-round draft choice on Donovan Jackson, who will likely be their new left guard. The area was a major need for improvement. Their centers and guards all ranked in the bottom 10 last season in run block win rate. In 2025, the Vikings will likely have 3 first-round picks, Jackson, Kelly, and left tackle Christian Darrisaw, and 1 second-round pick, right tackle Brian O'Neill, in their starting lineup. And, yeah, there's a lot of high draft pedigree across this offensive line. Then you got Will Fries, the 7th-rounder, who's on a 5-year, $88 million deal, and he's got a lot of upside. But the talent is there with this line. I think it's just going to come down to, can they build that chemistry and how fast they can, because I'm sure they'll get it by the tail half of the next season. But, the Vikings have a tough schedule, and let's just say they get blasted with, like, the Bengals and Ravens first 2 weeks, or, Bengals, Ravens, Lions. It could cause some issues since these guys haven't played with each other, but I do like that Ryan Kelly, Will Fries were with each other last year. It's really just going to be working in, like, Donovan Jackson, Darrisaw, can they get that connection going? And, listen, the Vikings' improved offensive line should unlock a new version for this Vikings offense. And, I feel like the past couple of years, it was all on the right arm of the quarterback, whether that was Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, but they were trying to take advantage of what they had on the outside, which was a huge advantage. When you have Jefferson, Addison, TJ Hawkinson, every single week, no matter who you are going against. You say, okay, our guys out there are better than your guys on the other side of the football. But this season, with the additions on the offensive line, the Vikings are going to be a more physical football team. They're going to lean more into the run and lean more into the strengths of your quarterback, which is J.J. McCarthy. I love McCarthy, but do we want him throwing the ball 35, 40 times a game? Not necessarily. We want him playing ahead of the sticks, get the play action game going, and I think this whole Vikings offense will have a whole new identity next season under Kevin O'Connell. But if you guys made it to the end of today's show, hit me with a SKOL down below in the comments section. Appreciate all the real ones who watch this entire thing. Crazy, crazy times with the Vikings. So appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. And also, if you guys want to talk about the Vikings, you got a question, you got a hot take for me, hit me up on Twitter. The handle's @PatSiep. So give me a follow over there, and we'll see you guys next time. As always, SKOL Vikes.